Welcome to our March Madness Bracket Breakdown. I'm Andy Katz. We're 2 months out from the NCAA tournament. Let's take a look first at my 4 #1 seeds. Virginia, Michigan, Tennessee, and Duke. Duke sliding to that 4th #1 after that home loss to Syracuse. I don't see a lot of movement with this 4. Maybe one could slide out, but I think Virginia, Michigan, and Tennessee right now are looking very strong to be #1s. All right, now let's shift to the last 4 teams in. These 4 teams, hypothetically, would meet in Dayton in the first 4. Texas out of the Big 12. Temple, last year with Fran Dunphy coaching them out of the American. Alabama, which had that home win over Kentucky. And San Francisco, which would be the 2nd team out of the WCC. All right, let's break down the last 4 out now. VCU, right there, potentially out of the A-10, could sneak past San Francisco if they were to falter. Arizona State, which has that home win over Kansas, and then 2 teams out of the Big East, Butler and Creighton. A year ago, the Big East had 6 teams. As of right now, I've got 4 in the NCAA tournament. So let's start to break down the bracket a little bit. As you can see, there's 68 teams here, and I think the selection committee is going to have a hard time or a harder time dealing with the back end of the bracket rather than the top, because there's really not a lot of difference with a lot of these teams that you're trying to put in toward those double-digit seeds. So let's start with the East, and I want to just cherry pick a couple out here. All right, first of all, LSU as a 4 seed. I mean, nobody's talking about the Tigers. They're a team that has continued to climb, continuing to win. They're going to have more opportunities coming up in the SEC. Minnesota is an 11 seed right now. What does that mean? That means they're on the verge of sliding to that first 4 in Dayton. So they've got some work to do to get out of that position. Houston as a 3 seed. My issue with the Cougars, though, as well as they've been playing, is in the American, I don't know if they'll have many more opportunities to climb higher than a 3. This may be their cap. Mike Dahm from South Dakota State would be a great player if he can get back to the NCAA tournament. Syracuse, you see them as a 10. That's because they won at Duke. That's why they have climbed higher. All right, let's shift out of the East down to the West bracket. You see Duke, which hypothetically would be a nice Virginia-Duke national semifinal if that all played out. Cincinnati at the 9 spot right now out of the American, sort of solid for the Bearcats. Murray State with John Morant. Be great if he can certainly get there. He's obviously a high flyer, will be a lottery pick. There's no question about that. Maybe a top 5 NBA draft pick. That would be a very dangerous 5-12 game, by the way. Maryland as a 4 seed. They continue to climb up. Right now, they're the 3rd best team in the Big Ten, and they're winning on the road. That's why they are a 4 seed. Nevada as a 3. That road loss to New Mexico is essentially what has put them down to that 3 spot out of the Mountain West. You got St. John's, no Shamori Pons when they lost to DePaul. That's kind of why they've teetered right there in that 7, 8, 9 range. Indiana, which has lost a couple of games. That's why they're at the 10. And Gonzaga as the 2. The question is, can the Zags still get back up to that 1 line where they were after they knocked off Duke? They're not going to have those opportunities in the WCC, so they're going to need other teams to fall back to them. But if they're the 2 seed, still pretty good for the Zags. All right, let's shift over to the other side of the bracket and taking a look at the South. Michigan is the #1 seed out there. Buffalo in a 5-12 matchup. Now, the Bulls are certainly a team that you have to watch closely because they could go deep into this NCAA tournament, a very senior-laden team. Down here, you've got Arizona as one of the teams out of the Pac-12. In this particular bracket, we've got Arizona as the AQ, getting 2 out of the Pac-12, which has not had a good year. But we've got Washington winning the regular season. They've quietly started to play much better basketball, very veteran team out of Seattle. We got them as a 10 seed. You've got Kansas as a 2 seed. Can they get back up to the 1 line? Certainly they can if they win the Big 12. No Udoka Azubuike, done for the season. That certainly has affected the Jayhawks. Purdue with Carson Edwards. He is one player that certainly could carry the Boilermakers further into this tournament, the way he's been leading them so far this season. All right, let's shift down to the Midwest part of the bracket. You got Tennessee as the 1 seed. Antoine Davis, by the way, out of Detroit Mercy. That's Mike Davis's son. He's putting up just monopoly-like numbers so far this season. K-State has suddenly got their act together. Dean Wade is healthy, so they're climbing up in that 8-9 range. Marquette with Marcus Howard. He's one of the candidates for National Player of the Year. He's putting up ridiculous numbers, scoring just, over 45, 50 points. Loyola Chicago getting to the Final Four last year. We got them projected right now as the AQ out of the Missouri Valley Conference. Villanova, the defending champs. Right now, They're winning the Big East, so they check in as a 6 seed. Carolina as a 3 seed. They're a little bit all over the map, but they certainly can climb higher with opportunities against Virginia and Duke coming up in the ACC. Michigan State as the 2 seed. I think there's a good chance that they certainly could get to that 1 line, depending on what happens when they take on Michigan twice later in the Big Ten. And if there's one team on this list, on all the bracket, there's no way anyone had in any of their brackets in the preseason, it is Ole Miss as a 7. They are the surprise team, not just in the SEC, but in the entire country. They were picked last in the SEC, and right now they are in the upper half of the SEC. Kermit Davis doing a phenomenal job down in Oxford. All right, so that's our look at the bracket as we see it right here in mid-January. We're going to be doing this next week and after the Super Bowl every week to get you ready for March Madness.